Good evening, everybody. My name is Eric Hudson. I work with the Arizona region of USA Volleyball, and tonight we have a really special webinar. Lisa Stuck from Glendale Community College and Regina Mannix from Scottsdale Community College. Regina Mannix is going into her 27th season as head artichoke at Scottsdale Community College and as the defending National Junior College Athletic Association Division II national champion. Her program has produced several All-Americans, multiple ACC Players of the Year, and several conference titles. Regina played 4 years at ASU, where she still holds several records during an illustrious career in Tempe. She's also an NJCAA Hall of Famer, and we couldn't be happier to have her with us tonight. So thanks for coming, Regina.
Thank you.
And to her left is Lisa Stuck, who's entering her 22nd season at Glendale Community College. She was also a head coach at MCC and an assistant at both NAU and UNLV. She's also an NJCAA Hall of Famer who won the national championship in 2014. She has 7 ACC Conference championships and 9 nationals appearances. She was also a standout at ASU, where she was a 2-time All-American and was the first women's volleyball player to be included in the ASU Athletics Hall of Fame. So Lisa, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we're going to get started with kind of how you got started in volleyball, your youth. And so, Regina, we'll start with you. Talk about your childhood, how you found volleyball, and yeah, take us from there.
Okay, so volleyball wasn't my primary sport. I was a softball player and a BMX racer. And my all-star team, we played together a long time for softball. And when I got into high school, I ran into some of those girls in the summer and they kept asking me why I wasn't at volleyball tryouts. And I said, yeah, not going to do that. And eventually I kind of got peer pressured into showing up for a tryout and changed my life. So I ended up playing volleyball as a freshman for Brian Gemolero for 4 years. And eventually he convinced me to give up my sponsorship for my BMX racing and all the college exposure I was getting for softball, which was much better than I was getting for volleyball. Convinced me that I would be a great setter, even though for 2 years I wasn't a setter in his program. He convinced me that having good hands was the least important thing, and he could teach a monkey to do that, and that I should be a setter. And I bought in, and he just changed my whole world. Because of him, I got to go to Russia, Finland, and England in high school, and I ended up being CIF Player of the Year, and I ended up being the #2 recruit in the nation 2 years later, and I will forever be grateful to him.
Wow, very cool. And Lisa, talk about your journey.
I started in 7th grade. We played on blacktop outside. I didn't even know what the game was about. And then when I got to high school, I tried out for the team. I made it. And I just was in the generation of whatever sport was in season, that's the sport you played. So I just kind of went from sport to sport to sport for my 4 years at Apollo High School. And at the end of that time, I was recruited to play basketball and play volleyball. And I decided that I was going to go with volleyball. I really loved the sport. I loved everything about it. And I had a couple of offers out there. Dale Flickinger came and recruited me. We didn't have club back then. There was no club. So getting recruited in that particular time was, I think, a little more difficult, and especially a young kid from Arizona. It's not exactly the hotbed of volleyball back then. So I consider myself pretty fortunate now that I can reflect back on that and how things have changed over the years.
Regina, did you have club ball in California when you were there?
We did. I started playing club volleyball. I want to say it was my sophomore year, and my first club coach was Chuck Irby, who at the time was the USC head coach.
Yeah.
Well, you've had an illustrious
Reg.
Hall of Fame coaches. Wow, that's amazing.
There wasn't really a tryout. It was more of like an invite.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Lisa, you go to ASU. Talk about your 4 years as a Sun Devil.
I came in with a freshman class of 9, and by the end of my time there were only 4 of us that actually made it through. with the volleyball piece together. We were very young, with various levels of experience. We weren't very good my freshman and sophomore year, but then we had a couple really good assistant coaches. We had Steve George came over from Southern California for a year, and then Debbie Brown was Dale Flickinger's assistant coach part of my junior year and my senior year, and I think that was kind of the turning point. My junior year, we made it to the NC2As. My senior year, I think we lost in either the round of 16 or the Elite Eight. I can't remember. I just remember I hit the last ball out at BYU. That part of it, I do remember. But I think my college experience was some of the best times of my life. I loved ASU. I loved everything about it. I think if I had to change it, it would be having the chance to play with Reg for at least a year.
And so, Reg, you literally came in as Lisa's leaving, you're coming in the door. And Debbie's your coach, right? Debbie Brown is your coach?
Yes. Yep.
So talk
and yeah, so I think Debbie is an amazing person and coach. I think beginning of the 80s, so maybe the year before when Valentina Vega came in is when they started doing ASU started doing some really heavy recruiting from Southern California. So there was about 6 people in like 3 years that came through from the same club. We all came from Cal Juniors. I also had Steve George as a club coach when I was there too. But I had an amazing experience. I loved every second of it. I missed the practicing more than I missed the games. Just being there every day and getting better was so much fun, and having expectations put on you every day was just amazing. And really grateful that I almost didn't end up there, and I'm glad I did. And I've never left. I love Arizona.
Where did you almost end up?
Well, growing up, I really wanted to go to Santa Barbara or San Diego State, and I thought, well, if I get scholarships there, I'm going to go. And I got scholarships to both and ended up turning them down. Those were really the California schools that I was interested in. There were some other schools that my parents wanted me to go to that I didn't want to go to. But once I got to ASU, I just loved Debbie, and I trusted her, and I was undersized as a setter, and I needed to be somewhere where somebody was going to have faith in how fast I could go, and that my volleyball IQ was going to compensate for my size. And some coaches say that, but they don't really believe it. But I really trusted that she did, and worked out.
So, Lisa, after you finish ASU, you go into the national team pipeline. You were involved in that for a couple of years. Can you talk about that, the coaching, and what that taught you?
Sure. I had a chance, I think it was my junior year in college or my senior year, I can't remember, to go on like a post-Olympic tour with the national team. And that was back when Rita Crockett was at the end of her career, and the Corbellis were still pretty involved in things. Sue Woodstra, like it's kind of that 80, 84 team. And then a lot of those girls that went through the boycott played in the 84 games. And then after that, a lot of them were like, I'm done. This has been a great time. But they kind of completed their goal and they moved on. And so they were looking to pick up a couple extra players. And I think with the ties that Deb Brown had, I was able to kind of have a really, really unique opportunity, and I did it. And it was one of the best experiences I've ever had with volleyball.
Who was your coach? And talk about them as a coach a little bit.
For that period of time, I believe it was John Corbelli. I think it was John Corbelli.
Yeah.
I played on a team that when I was with the junior national team, I played, and it was Rudy Sawara from San Diego State and Dave Shoji from University of Hawaii. Those were the 2 coaches of that particular team. So I've been pretty fortunate to have some really great coaching as a player and been around some really good coaches throughout my career. So.
And so, Reg, what did you do after you left ASU?
I played beach. I was diagnosed with lupus going into my junior year, and it really impacted me my senior year. So I wasn't really in a physical state where I could train year round, but sand was something that seemed to be okay on my joints. So I did that fairly competitively with a couple of sponsors and did that for a few years.
Were you AVP? You were playing AVP or?
Ish. So back then, it wasn't really called that yet. But yes, that would be the basically it was an open division of the AVP at the time.
And who was the hardest team you played? Do you remember who was the team that?
Jackie Silva, and I couldn't tell you who her partner was, but I can tell you it was Jackie Silva.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool. I'm going to fast forward now. So you guys both went through some your coaching journeys. Lisa was at Mesa Community College, assistant at NAU, did some stuff. But I want to go fast forward to 2014 with Lisa. I want to start with her. So you win the national championship in 14, your first. But I want to talk about that year and that season. You had been at GCC for how long then? About 17 years?
17, I think.
17 years. Yeah, so you've been there. You created this nice program, won a lot of titles, but that wasn't necessarily going in. Like I said, you were the 4th seed going into the end of season tournament, and I think you'd had some injuries and some other things. So can you just start talking about that season a little bit and
Well, what I've learned over the years is there's so much that goes into a season, and you recruit players who you think you can kind of get them to come together in a short amount of time and try to prepare them for a playoff run, but you got to get into the playoffs first. And Reg and I always have these conversations right before playoffs. If one of us is on the bubble, we go through all the math. Who has to beat who has to lose? Are we still in control of our own destiny? Am I going to make it in? And we limped in that year. I mean, we barely made it in. We were below 500 when the playoffs started. And honestly, if I had like a pat answer for how that happened, I would tell you. But it was really one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. And if you were to ask me at the beginning of the season, if that's how the season were going to end, I would say that you were crazy. Because I was on suicide watch for a while during that season.
So you're the 4th seed going into regionals.
Yeah.
I think the number 1 seed was South Mountain at the time, and they were steamrolling people. They were having a great year. So what are you telling your team at that point going into that tournament? You obviously have nothing to lose at that point, right? What are you telling them?
I tell them that we were underdog. When you're the 1 seed, all the pressure is on you, especially if you're hosting the tournament. And I expected teams to kind of overlook us just because we took a pretty big pummeling in the regular season. And I thought, well, maybe this underdog situation is good for us. That combined with some social media posts that were going up from various players off of various teams about who was going to be winning the tournament and this and that kind of fueled, I think, some of the let's do this mentality for my girls.
Was that so that was something that they saw and they were using it as kind of like if you back to the Michael Jordan documentary, he was making stuff up to get fired up, but they just got on social media and ran with it.
Oh, they didn't have to make it up. No. Yeah. They there's a gap for me on the social media side. I mean, when I was in college, there were no computers. So the whole social media thing has been a learning curve for me, but those kids are so in tune to it. And I think in 2014, there wasn't the policing that kind of goes on right now with it with regard to teams. And kids were it was kind of a free-for-all on social media and Twitter and Facebook and that type of stuff before they had all this other TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and all of the other mediums that are out there for them to communicate. So if somebody puts something out there on one of those 3 things, someone's going to see it. And that was one of the things that fired my team up. that and the fact that both Reg and I have been to that tournament a lot, and you have to approach it differently than you do the regular season. And we both know how to prep for that tournament. And I think coaches that have teams that are not used to being in playoff ball, it's a little bit of a different type of pressure, and not all teams can handle it. So I think it was kind of the perfect storm of all of those things coming together at the right time.
Yeah, and I don't know if people know, but it's a double elimination tournament. You have to go through and get beat twice. And yeah, I think the one seed was out the second day, and it was just like kind of a free for all at that point. So the nice thing is that nationals that year is at Phoenix College. It's at home. You're not having to travel anywhere. So go ahead.
Well, my kids were bummed. You know, they wanted to go somewhere, and I'm like, "You're going to PC." And at first, they were disappointed, and then I thought to myself, you know what? This might be a good thing, because we're going to have the home crowd, and we packed that place, and it made a difference for us being in our home environment. My kids get to sleep in their own bed, be with their families, stick to their routine, and I think that served us well because they were comfortable, and they were familiar with that gym. They played there before, and the fact that everyone was able to attend and be there and cheer them on gave us kind of a home court advantage. Whereas I think when you're on the road, like in Reg's situation, sometimes it's a little more difficult because you don't have that fan support unless you have families that are willing to, you know, pay the expense to go and watch the tournament.
If I remember right, the first match you won, nothing was easy that entire week. Nothing was easy. But you won the first, won the second, and then the third match, as I recall, and you were actually down in the fifth set. I think you had match points against you in the fifth set, if I'm not mistaken. Do you remember that?
We went, I think, 5 sets in the majority of the matches we played, and we were down 0-2 in the semi and the final, and we came back and won. I think in part that mentality of understanding that it's possible to do that comes from our conference play. Our conference is so competitive, and it's good volleyball, and I know we're going to get to that a little bit later, but the beating up that goes on during the regular season in our conference is real, and you are definitely battle tested. Getting through that regional is one of the hardest things that you have to do to get to the tournament. And a lot of the teams that are at the tournament, no disrespect, but they don't have to take that same path that we do. And I think it's a testament that we've had 2 teams from our region and from Maricopa that have won that championship, 2 of them in the last, 6-7 years. I mean, it's hard to do, but I think our season and the teams we play in the competition we face day in and day out, there's no easy matches for us. Every match is difficult, and I think that was part of why we were able to be so resilient.
You get to the final match, and I'll say this: I was there at the semi, and I watched the semi, and I know there was one play. I think you were down, if I'm not mistaken. I want to say 16-15 in the set, and your lib came from literally the baseline to get some ball up 25 feet. I don't even know how physically that was possible, but she got that ball up. You wound up getting the point and tying, and then I think you won 19-17, if I'm not mistaken. It was just amazing. But how do you at that point have the girls calm down? We got one more to go. Where do you take that, Coach?
I think I was lucky to have several girls on the team that are kind of that, I don't know what you want to call it, killer instinct, will to win, competitor, whatever it is, where you never say die attitude. And we kind of worked on playing each point at a time and trying not to get caught up in the emotion of the point. We do a lot of drills with that. So nothing prepares you for that. I thought I was going to pass out when we won that match, because when I stood up, I literally thought I was going to pass out. But I don't know. The kids are amazing. Some of the things they do, you just have to sit there and say to yourself, I can't believe that she just did that. But I got to give them credit. I mean, they pulled together at the right time, which is not something you can necessarily control as a coach. And it just it was an amazing run.
Yeah.
I'll never forget it.
So you get to the final. It's played, I want to say 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's against Parkland from Illinois. Lose the first 2 sets, 14-14. They are so confident that I actually remember this, that the times that you would call a timeout, their coaching staff sat on the bench and didn't address their team. Their team was over dancing and singing and having a good time, and they literally never went over to talk to their team, that they were so confident. And then the third set rolls around, and you guys were down, and you bore it back. Do you remember that third set a little bit? I'm sure you tried to forget the first 2.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. So what
I remember
happened?
all of it.
Yeah. So what happened in that third set? What was going on in that third set? What did you tell the girls to get them to kind of believe that they could do this?
Nothing. I was like, all right, let's go. This is another set. We got to try to battle back. You know, all the stuff that you say when you're trying to mount a comeback. But what I learned later on was that my girls saw their girls doing the electric slide and dancing on their end of the bench, and they got really they were really angry with that. They felt like they were being disrespected. And so I think that kind of flipped a switch for them, because they were having conversations in the huddle that I wasn't a part of, that I learned about later, that had to do with that. So I think that was part of it.
Yeah. The fourth set, you came out and just bombed them. It was 25-10. They weren't even in the set. And then the fifth set comes around, and it's pretty tight throughout. Do you remember how that last 3 or 4 points played out? You guys, I think, had taken the lead. I think you're up 12-10, I want to say, maybe. Do you remember?
Yeah.
3 or 4 points?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you talk about
Yeah,
it?
I was trying to keep my emotions in check. You know how you can kind of taste it, but then you don't want to jinx yourself, so you're like, just stop thinking about it. But I think in the back of their heads, they had come from behind so many matches in that tournament and won that, you know, being down 0-2 for the third straight match really wasn't a problem for them. I think they had the belief in themselves that they could actually pull it off for a third or for a fourth time or whatever it was. And as I was watching it unfold, I was shaking. I was trying to hold it together, but I was shaking when we had match point and Haley hit that ball off the block. And it's just surreal at that moment. I'm sure, Reg, you can relate. But you wait so long just to have an opportunity to even get to the national tournament, let alone get into a final. And then when you're there, you just, at some point, you just have to let your kids play and believe that they can do it, and give them some tactical stuff and timeouts, and just try to keep it simple for them and let them compete.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a point during that season where you did something tactically or culturally different that kind of turned a different direction, or was it just the way you trained them?
I'm pretty consistent in my philosophy, and when you start losing, I think there's a part of you as a coach that maybe starts to question a little bit about what you're doing and how you're doing it and why your kids aren't responding to it in a way that you think they should. And I definitely went through that with, you know, am I doing this right? Am I making the right decisions here? What is happening? And I started to question myself, and I thought, you know what, I'm pretty grounded in my philosophy, and I have a lot of confidence in the way I do things. And I thought, you know what, I'm not going to stray from what I believe. I'm going to just stick with it, and hopefully at some point this will turn around. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm not going to start changing how I do things in major ways because things aren't going well. And I think it takes a lot of inner belief in what you're doing and confidence as a coach to be able to do that, because the minute things go wrong, the tendency is to want to start changing everything or trying something new or trying something different. And for me, it was about resisting that temptation and just kind of staying the course.
But you know, that's difficult to get to your athletes, because you're having a rough season up to then, and they're losing matches they think they maybe should be winning. How do you convey that to your athletes at that point?
I think maybe you can try to tweak your practices. Communication with your athletes is really important. I try to get insight from them when we journal a lot and I read what they write. It's, between them and myself, so I can get an idea of kind of what their mindset is and what their fears are and what they think holds them back, and so that we can collaborate as a coaching staff to try to structure our practices in a way that enables them to work on that stuff. So it takes a lot of planning and a lot of dedication and commitment to what your philosophy is as a coach and how you want to implement it. But kids are tough, man. They'll go by your lead. If you're consistent and you're honest and what you say is what you mean and you're not going to change your mind, then they'll follow. Most of them will follow along. And I was fortunate to have really good kids in that regard.
Yeah. Reg, did you watch when Lisa won in 2014?
Yes.
You there? Yeah. What were you thinking watching this?
Well, I can't really say what I was thinking, but but I knew when it comes down to a fight like it did, if she could claw her way out of the first 2 sets, that she had the upper hand, because then it was you are sitting in the cat seat in that I have everything to gain, and that person starts backsliding and they have everything to lose. And I knew as soon as that happened that psychologically Lisa was at a huge advantage, and she knew how to do it from then on. And then her kids would know how to do it too. So we're in that, like she said, we're battle tested. When that happens, that's the fight we want at the national tournament. And they gave it to her, and she took it.
I think they were tight. They were undefeated. They didn't know what it was like to lose. We did, for sure. So it was kind of a no fear. If we can just get this 3rd set, I think we're going to turn the corner.
Yeah. It's oftentimes what you hear when you hear people talk about, NCAA Division I. You hear Big Ten, Pac-12. Those guys beat the living hell out of each other the entire season, and then by the time they're in the final, in the tournament, they don't get freaked out. They're just they're just grinding through it. So it sounds like this thing. So Reg, in 2018, your team goes 5-17. 0-15 in conference. I would assume you would consider that a disastrous season, I would think.
That was rough.
Yeah.
The worst season of my career.
So talk about that season a little bit. Was it culture? Was it kids? Did tactically something that didn't work? What was the reason for that?
So all systems fail. So we had a couple of kids transfer before season started that we didn't replace. Then we were relying on a transfer from U of A that I had trained in club, and she was really good. And she was going to be the backbone for us offensively, and she was also going to be our setter. So she was going to hit outside and be our go-to player, and she was going to run an offense. She was going to take all the pressure situations. She was going to do all the communicating, and that was going to level out everybody else. We weren't going to win our conference by any means, but we were going to be in the fight. Well, she goes down with an ACL, and during our preseason, I want to say it was an alumni game, and that wasn't good. So then I had a team full of people who didn't like pressure situations and didn't want to stay in a rally, and it was rough. So I had a team full of really scared volleyball players who were not prepared to stand up and take that kind of pressure. So and in our conference, every night, I don't care if you're playing the last team, except for that year, playing us was a little bit easy to win. But even when you're the number 1 team in our conference and you're playing the last place team in the conference, they can beat you. And so our kids were not ready for that.
So 2019 comes around. You've basically cleaned house. You have all freshmen except for 1 player, your middle, right? About recruiting for that next year. What were you looking for in players? What were you looking to replace?
Well, so I invited 1 player back, and I needed people who wanted to learn. I needed people who could learn, and we got really lucky with a couple of great pins, but we just kept looking for people that would compete and for people who want to take a big step forward in their volleyball career. So most of the student athletes that we recruited that year had 4-year opportunities to play somewhere, but they were looking to make a better option, let's say, or a bigger school or a better fit for them. So they really invested in buying in really early.
So you start the season 2-4. Which is probably not what you were thinking that was going to happen with this group, or maybe you were because they were so young. And then talk about what happens. It's pretty amazing what happens from there.
Well, so the 2-4, I'm not worried about. We've been undefeated in Division II volleyball. So those losses were to Division I teams with lots of international players. I was really impressed with our team's competitiveness and how hard we played at that first tournament. So coming away, I think we came out of there 2-2 maybe. I felt really good about those losses. Then we played Barton County and Spokane, and I have all freshmen, so I think I know what my strongest lineup is, but I was playing with it, and I was willing to take losses to get information. So while those losses happened, I think we could have beaten those two teams if we had stuck with a lineup that I knew would win, but I didn't want to do that with freshmen. I wanted to keep tweaking it before we got into conference play. Conference play is so much more important than preseason stuff. So I was just willing to gamble on those to get the information I needed.
So tactically, what were you looking to change? It sounds like it's almost a completely different team than the year before, so that kind of is off the table. But tactically, what were you looking for specifically when you started playing in conference? What were you looking for?
So you got to be smart in our conference, and I think that the dig against our high school players coming in is they're not prepared to battle. They're used to taking one swing and ending a rally. And while our team was really talented, we weren't that big. So getting to nationals, you've got to be smarter than your opponents. And so I was always asking them why that shot, why that spot, why are you running that play, why are you running that tempo. I just wanted them to know what they knew, and I wanted to make sure they were doing it on purpose for a reason, and not just let's see what works, let's try this, we haven't run it in a while. Was not going to happen. So everything was have a plan, have a reason, and then have a backup plan. And they all did that. I think for most of them, I think it was the first time that they were taught the game that way. And then teaching them how to dissect the other side of the net and make decisions based on that information, they thrived on it.
Lisa, what was it like playing Reg that season? Do you remember?
Yes. We're the same when it comes to certain things. I mean, we're tacticians, and you try to find a weakness or two and you try to exploit it, and you're hoping that your kids can execute the game plan consistently. And sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. And I think to Reg's credit, this team that she had this year was very good about staying the course. Even if they would drop a set or another team would go on a run with some points or get out early on them like we did, and then they would just stay the course, and eventually their plan would work, and they bought into that philosophy, and they got the job done big time.
So Reg, your team literally they win out. I mean, that's crazy to say in a volleyball season, but they win out. You go through the conference the year before, you're 0-15, and here you're 15-0, 16-0, whatever it is. Yeah. So
15-0. That's so much better than 0-15.
It's a little bit, yeah. So part of it though is how do you keep them not only grounded but focused on the end result? It's got to be somewhat easy for them to kind of veer off and think, wow, we're amazing, and we've won 10 in a row, 12 in a row. How do you keep them grounded and staying in the moment?
I think that's true most years. Most years you do have athletes that tend to do that. This group was a little special that way. I think that they were really invested in what's our process, not our outcomes. And the outcome's going to take care of itself. Let's just stick to the plan, stick to getting better. They all wanted to improve. It wasn't just about winning. They each individually wanted to improve. And you don't always get that. Sometimes we get athletes who just want to be told what they're good at. And I have to remind them, that's what your parents do. So I'm trying to teach you something you don't know. And this group just seemed to thrive on that. And so each match became an opportunity to learn something new for them. And they just got better and better. And we happened to win. That they just got better and better.
You talked earlier about how much you personally love practices.
Yeah.
Do you see that from this team, that they just love the work that they put in?
I think probably most of them did. Yeah, they get in there early. They're there before I get there. They're pretty motivated, and yeah, I think that they were excited about learning something new. And you know, practices just give you an opportunity to get a lot of feedback that you don't get in games. And I think the attention of learning something new and then being able to repeat it a few times is pretty exciting.
Sorry, and you wind up playing in the final, the villain of villains, I guess, Parkland again. Talk about your run in the tournament.
So we were playing really well, and we got to the semis against Coffeyville. And the last time we had been at the national tournament, we had played Coffeyville there as well, and we had beaten them. Coffeyville going into this tournament was a two-time defending champion and had beaten Parkland the year before. And they were pretty sassy. And we would have a confrontation with us the day before we ended up playing them. And so that match, everybody was watching. I think we were the favorite in that they had had enough of Coffeyville and some of the stuff they say and some of the ways they act. I know the year before they got kicked out of the tournament hotel for some unsportsmanlike stuff they were doing. So that was a tough match, and they had a player on that team that was a beast, and you can't contain her. You can't stop her. From the service line, she embarrassed us how tough her serve was, and it was just an odd serve. Nothing I'd ever seen before. It was like part top spin, part side spin, part like just a heavy hard ball to control coming over. So she could get 5-6 aces in a row and embarrass you. But we found a way to wear them out. Really, that was our strategy. Wear them out. And once we got past them, Parkland was cheering, which motivated our girls because we knew that they couldn't beat Coffeyville. And I think we took it as, oh, good, Scottsdale won. We have a chance to win now, or we're going to win now. And they also did not get up for timeouts. That's just his coaching thing. He doesn't get up for timeouts. So yeah, that was a motivating factor for us when they were cheering so loudly after we beat Coffeyville.
Isn't it amazing that just these little things the kids pick up on, right? And they just use it to fuel the fire. It's very Jordan-esque. Like I said, when you watch The Last Dance, that's the stuff that Jordan did. But it's amazing, isn't it? How for both of you guys that worked out. It's pretty incredible. And so on the final, so again, you get to the final. What are you telling your girls before the match? I'm assuming you're calm and collected, but what are you telling them? Trying to keep them not freaking out the moment, not, what are you telling them?
Well, I always tell them that when you start to freak out, just have faith that I've already done the thinking. Like, we've got it figured out. So there's no pressure on you in that way. We have a game plan. It's a recipe for success. You just need to put in the ingredients that we listed right here and do it over and over again. And the outcome is probably going to be the outcome we want. When it came to Parkland, I said, I know we're more prepared for this than they are because, like Lisa said earlier, we are battle tested. People have tried to break the armor. They've tried to exploit things. And in a game situation, we're able to make changes. I think teams like Parkland, they don't have to make a change till next week. They have all kinds of time. Lisa and I are making changes in seconds and making adjustments that work in real time. We don't have to watch film for 5 hours to figure that out. And I think that's a big advantage that we have. And so when we can get into a timeout and say to our girls, okay, this is what they're taking away. This is what they're giving you. This is how you exploit that. And when it works, there's no pressure. They turn around and look at you like, oh my gosh, okay, we got this. And that's what they ended up doing. And it worked out. And getting into game 5, I think at the switch we were 8-7.
I thought you were down.
I think on the switch we were up, and then we rattled off the next, I think 6 in a row before we won it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I got a question here from Mark. He says, I'm curious if Lisa thinks her team, because of their many 5-set matches, was better conditioned for longer matches than other teams.
Well, I think you have to be in top shape just to get through the regional, because you're playing, I mean, if you went the distance, what is that, Reg? 5 matches? 2
5.
days?
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
5 matches in 2
Yeah,
days.
if you're going to go the distance, and we've both done it that way, Regina and I, you have to be able to get through 5 matches, 3 out of 5. And you have to anticipate you're going to go 5 to be able to survive that tournament. And so I think, again, you have to, once you figure out you're going to be in the regional, you have to make sure that your kids are in the best shape of their lives to be able to survive that. And then you just carry that over into the national tournament. So I would say the answer to that question is yes. I thought just looking at some of the other teams, you could tell that we were more fit. We were better prepared in the physical and in the cardio realm to withstand what it was going to take to get through that tournament. And I know that Reg's team was the same way.
What did you get to see Reg win? Were you able to watch it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And what are you thinking watching that?
I thought it was awesome. I mean, I've wanted this for her. She's come so close a couple of times, and it's so hard to do. And once it's done, you're like, this huge relief it just washes over you, and you feel this sense of completion. As far as a career goes. I mean, we've been at the same school, both of us, for over 2 decades. It's like you just want that as part of your accomplishment, and you want your kids to experience what that's like. And I don't know. I was genuinely happy for her that she was able to get it done.
Yeah. So, Reg, I have a question, and this is taking some liberties because we were just talking about this before the webinar started, about what the future holds for volleyball going forward this year. But you've got 11 players coming back, 10 players coming back?
No, we've had some people that aren't going to come back, but we've filled those spots.
Okay. So
they'll be good.
Yeah.
They're always good.
So the question is, as a coach now, you've got this, you're the defending national champion. Everyone is going to be gunning for you. How does your strategy change? Does your culture change? Does your mindset change as a coach? How do you convey that to your players? Is anything different than last year?
So since we haven't been in the gym with our team, it's hard to know where they're at in their head. But for me, and I know for Lisa, nothing changes. I think that Lisa is the same as I am when it comes to, you want to be the person that is hunting, and when you're the one being hunted, you pretend that you're not, and you make it about hunting somebody else. And I just think that's a stronger position to come from. So no, I don't think we change anything. I think what we did was correct. They were in great shape mentally, emotionally, and physically, and I give all that credit to my assistant, Julia Larish, does an amazing job keeping them in shape. She's super knowledgeable, and she also does a lot with their nutrition, and they benefit from that all the time, especially with big matches. So the question will be, is if they work as hard as they did the first time.
Yeah.
So if they do, and having won national championship wasn't enough for them, and they work hard, I don't think they could have worked any harder than they did. So I don't think we need that, but they have to match that effort level, and I think we have a real shot at it.
Yeah. Lisa, do you remember 2015 after you had won and you graduated a chunk of seniors that year? Was it different being with the bullseye on your back?
I don't know. I think every year is different, and I think the freshmen that were on that team the amount of fun that they had that year, they were like, okay, let's get back to that tournament. You know, let's do what we need to do to get back to that tournament so that maybe we can have the same type of experience. So they were motivated. They were motivated to kind of carry it on, if you will. And you hope that they're still hungry, like Reg was saying, and that the people that you bring in that class, because your turnover is half your team every year, and you just hope that they gel enough and bring enough to the plate with commitment and competitivism and hunger and desire and doing all those things to put themselves in a position to get into that regional final and have a shot at getting back there. And I think we took third that year, but we managed to make it back.
So you both have talked repeatedly this last 45 minutes. And by the way, let me remind the attendees, we've got about 15 minutes left. So if you have any questions, please get them out and I'll make sure I get them answered as best I can. You guys have talked this entire time about what the ACC AC is. It's Thunderdome in your guys' minds. It's every single night. And the fact that you only have kids for 1 year, hopefully 2 years, but some only a year. The fact that you're playing sometimes 2 and 3 matches in a week, you get a chance sometimes to scout as much as you'd like. It's got to be just a grind for coaches during the season. It just has to be, right? And you're both laughing right now, but it's maybe because you've had some time off. I don't know. But talk about that as a grind for these coaches. What do you guys? I mean, do you talk to your husband, Reg, when you're during season? Do you get to see him at all? And how does it work?
Yeah, it's sometimes he kind of knows the warnings system to stay away sometimes, and other times, it's easy. But on top of our conference being such a grind, we're also at high school games on the nights we're off and on the weekends. So the fact that we have to recruit during that time is just brutal. I know our signing date I wish our signing date was in the spring, but it's not. And so that is just an added stressor for us, that if you put all your time and energy into the season you're in, you're blowing it for the next one. Like you have to do both. It's hard to do.
Yeah. Lisa, you agree?
100%.
Yeah, it's tough.
I think Eric, you and I know Reg, you guys have talked about this, about JUCO ball in the Valley, in the state. And, Regina's team had some D1 talent on it, and she had a really great group of athletes. For whatever reason, who knows, came together and decided to play at Scottsdale, and I think there's a misnomer out there in the club world, and just it's perpetuated by a variety of different factors, but that the junior college is not a legitimate place to continue playing college ball. And I can't disagree more. And I think Regina and I, we both played Division I ball. We've both been on that side of it. And I don't know, it's hard to recruit. It's not only because of what Reg was just stating with the time commitment, but also with trying to convince people that this is a great avenue for them to continue their education and move on to the next level.
Is the impediments parents? Is it club directors who want to move their kids to D1, D2 programs? Is it the kids themselves? What are the impediments for you guys recruiting?
All right, I'll go
Reg, why don't you
first.
take this one?
I mean, obviously you're bound geographically a bit.
I want to be able to land a couple of recruits, so I'll pass that question on to Regina.
So, unfortunately, there are some coaches that want that their resume is about where they place kids and not necessarily how great of a placement that was. And so they sort of pressure club kids to take opportunities because it is a Division I or it is a Division II, not because it's the right fit for that athlete. And, I'm about, if you have space to learn and improve and you can get a better opportunity or a better fit somewhere, then you should come play here. especially for me or Lisa, because we can teach you the things you're missing that's going to help you get on the floor when you get to that 4-year school. Because the reality is, none of these girls, at least in Arizona, we have a lot of kids that transfer back that want to go somewhere and sit on a bench for 2 years and be happy and stay out of trouble and do well in school. It's, especially if they're in bad weather. It's just not a fit. So they get to do the Instagram thing and they get to post it and wear the sweatshirt and they do all that, and then they're back. And it's easier to be here and bounce out of here from our programs than it is to come back and look for another opportunity. So I wish that conversation happened more honestly with students and with their parents, but I don't think it does very often. Lisa?
I think part of it is not fully understanding what JUCO ball is. Like if people tell me, well, I don't want to go to a junior college, I'm like, have you been to watch Glendale play Scottsdale? Like, have you been to any of our games? Well, no. Okay, well then how can you make that judgment if you've never seen us play? And I think it's just that, again, it's that stigma of it's just an extension of high school. It's not. I mean, those kids come in and they struggle with the speed of the game and the height that comes with the next level, and it's going to only get harder for them when they transfer out. And a lot of them at 18 think they know what they want, but they don't have. Some of them do, but there's a good chunk that don't have the life skills yet to be able to leave home and go across the country and be in an environment where they don't know anyone, they don't really have any friends, but it's this college or whatever, and so I'm going to go there. And they just don't have the skill set in the life skills department to be able to navigate the stress that comes with that. And I think those kids that go JUCO are better equipped at transfer time. They're ready. At 21, you're ready to go. And you have what you need as far as life skills, school skills, study skills, time management skills, all of the things that they're going to learn. By the time they get to 21, we can send them on with confidence that they're going to be okay. They've been in a year-round training program with us. I know Reg does year-round too. It's just like a little microcosm of what Division I is like. Mm-hmm. And they're prepared for it.
The other thing that happens at our level is when you get recruited as a high school senior, most of the schools that are recruiting you are looking for you to find a way into their lineup your junior year. So the fit doesn't have to be great. They have time to try to develop you and or recruit over you. When they take you out of a JUCO, you have to be an exact fit. They have done more research on you. They've paid attention to you. They're not recruiting you for your potential. They're recruiting you for your skill level. And so when they recruit you, they want you on the court. They're not looking to put you 3 deep on the bench. And so that's a happier opportunity to go and know that they need you to fill a need on the floor instead of being on the roster. So being able to play for 2 years and then transfer out and be a starter is a really great way to have a career in volleyball.
Yeah. Kelly Robb says, best decision of my life was to play at SCC. So, so there's some fans out there. You guys are in a unique position because you've been at the same school and you've seen the recruiting and you've seen everything. How have athletes changed over the last couple of decades? How have they specifically changed, as far as maybe it's how you changed your recruiting processes, or just maybe the mentality of the athletes? How have you seen the change?
Kids want to know the why. You know, when I played, your coach said, do this, you did it. You know, it's just how it was. It was old school. And today, kids need answers to questions. They want to understand why they're doing what they're doing. And so that's a definite difference. I think for me, I pay a little bit more attention to the intangible things, more so than I used to. I used to just get immediately pulled to the best hitter or the best blocker, the best defender. And now it's like, okay, that kid's a good defender, but is she a good teammate? What's her work ethic like? What kind of a student is she? Those types of things that I didn't really have to pay that close attention to, or I chose not to for whatever reason. But over the years, I've discovered that I need to pay more attention to that, because I think the X factor at this level is team chemistry, and that's not a skill in volleyball anyway, but I think it's something that sets teams apart. And if you can get the right group together and they're like-minded in their approach to the game, it's so much more enjoyable to coach than if it's the other way around.
Reg, what do you think?
Well, and I also think the attention span is a lot shorter, and they have to see results quicker. So I think, I know Lisa's done the same, because I can tell by her team, because they're always good. We've changed the way we deliver information so that they get it quicker and they can feel some success. Whereas, like Lisa said before, we used to have students that would grind it out with you for a long time and never question anything and just sort of be a loyal soldier behind you, and whatever you said they did. And now there is a lot more of like negotiations that happen, and I think that's a different dynamic with parents maybe too, that kids are better at negotiating what they want, and they don't just take it, they want to know why.
Yep.
And I don't think they're afraid of me anymore. There were some times they were actually a little bit afraid, and they wouldn't really approach and ask certain things. And now it's like, oh no, nobody's afraid. Everybody will ask. But I agree with Lisa that chemistry is really important, and I think that's been the biggest change I've seen in women's sports is when we played, whoever the best player was, everybody respected and everybody sort of was drawn to. And now it's not necessarily that. Sometimes it's hard to find females, I think, that want to lead. It's not really a comfortable position for them. And so that's tough sometimes to figure out how to get leadership out of your players and make sure it's the right kind of leadership. And that's a challenge. I think it's something we need to figure out what went wrong there, because I think it used to be stronger. But I think there's more doubt with this generation off the court than there used to be. Being a great athlete used to give you confidence off the court and in your whole life. And now I don't see that kind of carryover like I used to.
Lisa, what makes Regina such a great coach?
I have no idea. No, I'm kidding. I think she develops really good relationships with her players, and I also think that she knows the game in a different way. I think coaches sometimes they just go out and coach and they cheer their team on, and I think when you're in it long enough, you learn how to find those incremental advantages and you start thinking a little bit different. I don't know, maybe coaches don't, but I respect that about Regina, because I know when we play each other, I better have my what together, and I better be prepared, and I better have my kids prepared and knowing what they're doing and what our matchups are and all that type of stuff. And I think that comes from longevity and just being in this business for so long and being able to pick different people's brains over the years and working on the professional development side of coaching. But also, we're kind of kindred spirits. I mean, we're the same type of player, ultra competitive, impatient with people that didn't work hard or want to win. And so it's that burning passion inside for those things that keeps us around the game, and what I think makes her successful in what she does.
And Regina, I'm gonna ask you the same question. What makes Lisa such a great coach?
So I think she's correct. We share a lot of the same qualities, but I also think that we want to share, and I see this in Lisa. I know I have it too, but I see it in Lisa. She wants them to walk away from the sport fulfilled with the same things that fulfilled her. And it just, the opportunities that athletics gives you and how you get to take them for the rest of your life, you take that story with you for the rest of your life, is amazing. And when we see kids that aren't fulfilling their opportunities, it's frustrating for us. So I see Lisa working really hard to try to get every ounce of potential out of every kid she has. And so they all have that aha moment, and they get better all the time. She's very tactical. She demands that they show up and they are ready to go, and that obviously we always want our kids to stick to the game plan, But I think Lisa's team does a better job of that than anybody else in our conference. She gets them to stick to her plan more often than any of the rest of us can. And I think that's because they trust her and they believe in her. And that's hard to do. That's hard to do year after year, especially as every year we get older and they are still 18. They're still 18. So I think she does a great job. She's very passionate and always prepared. And, you know, she's always got a trick or two up her sleeve. And it's just a matter of when it's going to come out, not if. So yeah, you gotta.
Yeah.
Thanks, Reg.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to ask you both this question. What was the best piece of coaching advice you ever got in your playing career, coaching career, whatever? What was the best piece of coaching advice?
I don't know if I can say just one. I was so lucky with so many great coaches.
We'll let
But
you
I know
say 2 or
that-
3 if you want. It's okay.
Well, Debbie Brown used to just say, so I worked really hard, and Jim Lero had that in me, just work really hard all the time. And Debbie was the one that said, love it as much as you work at it. And I never really took the time to love it. It was just the next thing I had to conquer. And that was like, I need to conquer this, I need to conquer this. And she was about, sit back and love what you're doing. And that changed some things for me too.
Lisa?
I think one of the things I learned, I don't know who I learned it from, but was to try to keep my emotions in check during matches and in practice at times, and learning how to control my competitivism as a player and separate that into the coaching, and trying to remain calm in those really stressful moments so that when those kids look over to the bench, you're not spazzing out over there and throwing stuff. I mean, so I think that took a long time for me to learn. When I first started coaching, I was player mentality and I just had no patience. And I think developing that patience takes a long time, and being able to kind of self-check when you feel it welling up inside and not losing it on the sideline. I think that's really important. And I think I learned that from watching other coaches coach. It wasn't necessarily from anybody specific, but just watching them handle themselves on the sideline and knowing how their players played when they were calm.
Not letting your players dance on the sideline when you were ahead. So
no electric slide. No.
Yeah, no electric slide. What would be the best piece of advice you could give to coaches from all you learned in your national championship years and your down years? What would be the best piece of coaching advice?
I think
coaching is not, sorry, Reg.
That's all right.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think just do things on purpose. Don't just do things to do things. Have a reason why you're doing it, and really understand your team and what they're willing to do and what they're going to struggle to do. And, you know, trying to run a play or do something that you really don't have the pieces to do does not set you up for success.
Okay.
Agreed.
That's what you're coming back with, is agreed?
Well, you've got to have purpose behind what you're doing. And I always tell my team, everything we do is intentional. Like, there's a reason behind what we're doing. It's not just because I love, this is my favorite drill, let's run it. Or this is, you know, we haven't run this drill in a while, so let's run it. There has to be purpose behind what you're doing as a coach. And I think that's what makes it so fulfilling in the end, is when all that purposeful work goes in and it actually yields the results that you're looking for in your kids and in your team. And that for me is what makes it, is all the hard work that goes into those purposeful practices and progressions and, you know, scenarios and all of that based on who you're playing that week is what I find challenging and rewarding.
Yeah, I'm going to end it with this. Just got this from Andrea, and she says, thanks for the chance to listen to both coaches. Some of the hardest practices in my volleyball career was under Lisa through high performance and gaucho volleyball. She was an alum in 2004 and 2006. And she says, Coach Regina and SCC, thank you for always giving us a challenge in a tough match. I think that kind of sums up your guys' relationship. And if those that are listening have never seen Glendale and Scottsdale square off, please this fall set aside a Friday night or whatever and go watch it, because it's some of the top volleyball that you're going to see in our state. It's really, really good. Ladies, I can't thank you enough for your time and your memories and your wisdom and expertise. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. Everybody listening, our last webinar will be Sunday with John Kessel at 6 p.m. Hopefully you can make it. Gil, thank you for your help with IT. Ladies, again, thank you so much. And everybody, enjoy yourselves. Have a good night and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.